Hi, I'm Matt. Since we're one day away from the official release date for the Ubuntu 18.10 Cosmic Cuttlefish release, I figured it was the right time as any to show you how you can help testing the release. What we can see, I'm looking at the releases page on the wiki right now, and as you can see, it says October 18, 2018, and Cosmic Cuttlefish, which is our current development release. And if you drill down, you can even look at the release schedule, which outlines the various different milestones for release. Again, October 18, that's tomorrow at the time I record this video. It is absolutely time to do testing for the release. So let's carry on. What you'll need, the first thing to do would be to go on iso.qa.ubuntu.com and you create your login account or log into the page if you already have one. Once you're there, on the testing tracker, you will see the various milestones that are open for testing. And what we're testing right now is going to be Cosmic Final. So if I go open Cosmic Final, I can see the various different products that we're building. Ubuntu Mate, Xubuntu, Ubuntu Studio Server, and what we're going to be testing right now is going to be Ubuntu Desktop AMD64. On Desktop AMD64 test cases, let's pick something. Let's pick Install Entire Disk. And you'll see here that there's a test case which outlines the various steps that you should take to do the testing. But that doesn't tell us exactly what to test. What to test is actually linked from the top here and linked to the download information, which you can open, and you see various ways that you can retrieve the image that is scheduled for testing. I already have that open in a terminal. What you will need to retrieve that image, one of the best ways is to use ZSync. ZSync is a package that you can grab directly from the archive, and it avoids you downloading a full image when you've already downloaded something before. If you already have a recent enough image, you will only need to download a few small chunks of the file. In this case here, I already have downloaded it. Once we have that, the next thing that we will need is something to test on. You could do testing on hardware, in which case you would copy the ISO image straight to a USB disk using dd command or some other tool to copy the files from the ISO image onto the USB disk. If not, then you can always use a VM. My favorite tool for testing images is to use QEMU and Virt Manager. So we can install libvirt. It's actually going to be libvirt0, Virt Manager, and if we're doing testing on UEFI, which is usually what I would do, we will also need OVMF. If you want to do standard testing with BIOS systems, then you can just submit OVMF. Obviously, once again, I already have all of this installed. Oops, that's what's wrong. And we can go ahead and start Virt Manager. In Virt Manager, we can hit New to start creating a new VM. In this case, I do want to start with local install media and go pick the file that I just downloaded. So browse local. That will not show, unfortunately. And pick Cosmic Desktop AMD64.iso, the file that we've just downloaded. And click forward. Now, you could use the amount of RAM that is set by default. I will increase it just to make the installer go a bit faster, possibly. And 15 gigabytes of disk space is going to be enough for that VM. We could change its name, customize the network, but that virtual network default will be sufficient, and customize configuration before install since I want to do testing on UEFI. So hit finish. Now I can pick the firmware that I want to use. In this case, I will be using ovmfcode.ms.fd, which is a firmware image that has Microsoft keys pre-installed. So we can test Secure Boot all the way from the beginning. I hit apply, and that should basically be enough to start the installation. Now if we bring that to full screen and perhaps also adjust scaling, we can wait for the VM to start. And there we go, we're starting the installation. So as of now, we're still working from the live image just to start the installer. And we will want to step through all the steps of the installer up until we finish the installation process, reboot, and see that the system works, well, see whether the system works correctly. So we have a mouse, so far so good. And we're getting desktop. Again, that's pretty good. From there, we can start the installation by double-clicking the Install Ubuntu 18.10 icon. Pick a language. I will pick French for this one. Hit Continue. Pick a keyboard. It's usually a good idea to try this in your native tongue, if you can, or pick any language that you know and that you understand, or even pick any random language that you feel that you would want to test and see if it works correctly. In this case, I'm using the US International Keyboard because that's the one I usually use, and I can see that it works correctly, that it has been selected the right way for the keyboard that I use and the key combinations that I'm used to using with that keyboard. So hit Continue. From this point here, I expect that the slight corruption that we keep seeing here is an issue with the VM rather than disk, but it will need to be double checked. So let's keep going. I can do a standard install or a minimal install. For the purpose of this video, to keep it as quick as possible, let's pick a minimal install. We can download the updates and we can install custom drivers, but we will not configure Secure Boot. We hit Continue. Now, this is really, the corruption here is kind of annoying. So erase disk and install. Actually, let's even pick to encrypt the disk and use LVM. Let's click Install Now. We will need to enter a password for the disk encryption. Let's use the most secure password ever, password. Click Install Now. Actually, I'm already deviating from the test case that I said I would be testing. I should be picking entire disk with LVM and encryption for this one. So you do want to pay attention to exactly the steps you're taking to do the testing, so that you can write down the test results in the right place. Now this is telling me that the following changes are going to be made to the disk. Hit continue. Now we will pick a time zone. I'm in the Toronto time zone. Again, continue. And now for the name, let's call our user Ubuntu, and let's use a different password this time. It's going to be insecure. Ask for the password every time I want to open a session, or I could pick to automatically open a session. Hit continue. And the install will try to complete by copying the files and proceeding with the customization of the machine. So adding my user, selecting the right time zones, selecting the right keyboard. And if all goes well, once the system is finished installing and I reboot, I should have all the right settings. If we go, while this runs, if we go look at a different case, I can also test a server image. In this case, I'll be trying the PPC64EL server image and trying a multipath case. So multipath is when you have one disk that can be reached by multiple disk controllers. So let's start the machine, and let's quickly ensure that it boots from the CD-ROM. I do have control in grub, and I can go dig in to enable multipath, which needs to be done manually in this case here. So let's start this command. And we have a text-based installer. So English, United States. Again, I could have picked a different language, but it's not absolutely necessary. We just want to have good enough coverage to see that translations are available, that language settings are being applied correctly. So typically I would do installs in French, in English, possibly in Spanish or German, or some other language that I can think of. And usually a language, it goes better. So host name is Ubuntu. The full name of the user is going to be Ubuntu again, and we will use the same password as before, insecure. The time zone has been pre-selected to America, New York. That will be good enough. And we will soon be shown the installer, the partitioner part of the installer. So in this case here, let's pick use entire disk, and we can select disks. So here we see that there is a bug in that the system has not recognized the two first disks as being multipathed, but that is in a way expected because the disks aren't empty. This is an issue with using VMs to do the testing. So if I go clear the disk, go back, execute a shell, and rescan for multipath, I can do the guided partitioning again with use entire disk, and now I have my disk there. So the next steps would be to mark a bug where the disks are not being automatically recognized as multipathed when they're not empty. Let's proceed. So the multipath disk mpath A has been formatted with a boot partition and /, and we can hit finish partitioning and write changes, confirm the prompt, and in this one, well, this install is also going to be copying the files and doing the customization. So while this runs, we can go back to our VM, our other VM. The install is nearly done here. And the same applies here. It's nearly done. So once the install is done, or as soon as you started it, you can tell others that you are running some testing, that your testing is in progress by clicking in progress in the add test results section and hit submit result. When you do that, your name will appear there with the little clock icon to show that your testing is in progress. And once you're done, you can hit failed if you couldn't complete the process, or passed if you could complete, but there are whether or not there were issues. So critical bugs, if it prevents you from passing, and any other bugs that you found, and optionally your comments. So we'll keep that to in progress for now. At the bottom, you also have a list of bugs that you should look for. So one of the things is to check whether there's a label for VM encryption passwords. And on Ubuntu installer slideshow, you can click on the URLs. We're not testing Ubuntu installer slideshow right now, so obviously I won't see that bug. Okay, so this installer is asking me for proxy, which I don't have, so I can hit continue. So it will go on with the second part of that install. And this one here is not done yet. So one thing we can test while we're waiting is also, does the slideshow work correctly? If I hit one of the links, does it open a browser? And it looks like it does. This might not actually work if you were in the install Ubuntu code path on a BIOS install. So I have Firefox that's running, showing me the help.ubuntu.com page, which is the right one that it needed to open, and a Firefox privacy notice that just starts when you first start Mozilla. We can also check that other things are running correctly on the live image. So can you start a calculator, for instance? It looks like it's still starting. So given the time that it takes, that could also constitute a bug. The calculator should not be taking 2 minutes to load, and we should actually eventually see it loaded. And I do not yet see it. Can I browse files? Yes, I can. Ah, the calculator is ready. So yes, calculator taking upwards of a minute is something to watch out for. It may or may not be something expected, given that I'm running in a VM and with limited amounts of RAM. All of these bugs, they tend to be, usually when you're in doubt, you should report bugs. If you know that this is an issue that that you should not be seeing, it can be a good idea to ask someone else if they see the same issue on their system in their tests. So you can do that on the Ubuntu release channel, or look to see if other people have reported the same bugs in their testing if you're not the first to do the testing. Okay, this one is asking me about automatic updates. I'm not going to run automatic updates for this, and I can hit continue without picking more stuff to install. Still needs to unpack a few more packages. And this one is almost completed. While we wait, another way to retrieve the images that you might want to test is to look on cdimage.ubuntu.com. On that website, you have, this is basically the listing of all the images that we build. So you can find the exact same things that are linked to by the ISO tracker right there. So for instance, if I want to test Ubuntu, I could go in the Ubuntu directory, go in Daily Live, pick the latest image. Often you can pick current to get the very latest image. Now I know that the one that we're trying to test, if I go back to look at the test cases for Ubuntu, should be close by. It's at the beginning. You could see it right there in version. It is 17.2. So if I go in the 17.2 directory, I can retrieve the images from there, download the ISO directly, or download the ZSync file, which will let me grab the ISO file using ZSync. The same applies to any of the other releases. So if I want to download the Ubuntu server ISO image, I can get it using the Ubuntu server directory, then daily or daily live. Daily live being the image with the new Subiquity installer, and daily being the older Debian installer based images. So let's look back at our VM. The install is completed, so we can pick to restart now. Let the machine restart, but watch it to make sure it restarts correctly. If I resize this, I should be able to look at the other VM. Okay, so I am asked to remove the installation medium and press enter, which is good because that was a bug that we needed to ensure was fixed. So I can hit disconnect to pretend that I've removed the installation disk and hit enter. The machine reboots. Let's put it always on top so that we can look at it. And on the other terminal, I have an installation complete message, so I can hit continue and the system will also reboot. So that completes the how-to on testing images. Thanks for watching.